Hello everyone, Burger Brush here, and today I bring you the 3.13 Ritual League Divine Ire Inquisitor update. Now, the Inquisitor Ascendancy was changed quite a bit overall, but I will only go over the changes that concern our specific build here. Now, overall we did get actually quite a bit of damage, and we also got an economical buff in the sense that we do not have to require a certain armor anymore, or if you want to look at it like that, you can use the money that you would have used for that armor to invest into another armor instead and gain even more damage. So let's go over to the Path of Building and let's have a look at all the changes. Here I am in Path of Building and we're looking over the main changes that I want to talk about for this build itself. As I just said earlier, Sanctuary now has Consecrated Ground you create applies 15% increased damage taken to enemies. This used to be 10%, so this 5% is actually quite a lot of a buff. And then they've also changed Righteous Providence, which used to give a 100% crit chance and 45% critical strike multiplier for us. Now, this was a slight nerf and a slight buff in a sense, because we lost 45% crit multiplier, which is a lot of damage. But now instead you have 1% critical strike chance per point of strength or intelligence, whichever is lower. And then they gave us 50 plus strength and 50 plus intelligence. So basically what this means is that if you can acquire around 200 strength or maybe even more, that means that we now have 203 strength, which basically is 100% more crit chance than what we used to have. Righteous Providence used to give 100%, but now since we have 203 strength, it now gives us 203% critical strike chance. And basically what this means is that we can now actually cap on our crit chance much easier in order to hit 100% crit chance. And when you hit 100% crit chance, you basically always ignore enemy monster elemental resistances because we crit all the time, and this is actually huge for our damage. And what we actually used to do on the build is that we used to have a Val Regalia that was Shaper influenced, with the spells have 1.4% critical strike chance in order to actually hit 100% crit chance. But now that armor is no longer necessary and you can just actually ignore it altogether. The main thing that we still want to keep around though is Assassin's Mark on bosses, self-casting until you can afford it on a ring, because without Assassin's Mark we will not get even close to 100% crit chance. It will be very high, but we will not quite get it. If I'm not mistaken, I can actually see here how much we have without it. You can see here 80%, with it closer to 100. So you still want to have Assassin's Mark self-casting on bosses or on your ring. But since we can now actually ignore the Val Regalia Shaper influenced armor, we can instead either not invest into that altogether, and we will still have quite a lot more damage. My Path of Building used to show me 4.1 million damage, now it shows 4.5 instead. And now actually, since we don't have to invest into that, it's cheaper. Or if you want to take that money that you would have invested into that armor, you can instead invest into a Redeemer influenced armor now instead. And you can try to hit chance to gain a frenzy charge on hit. Now there are quite a lot of ways to generate frenzy charges in this game, and for certain builds it's a lot easier than others. In this build it's quite difficult unless you have an armor like this, or unless you come up with another way to do it. There are probably other ways you can do it as well, but I feel like this armor is kind of an easy way to get it. So if you want to invest the money that you would invest it into the Shaper influenced armor instead into a Redeemer, you can get that. And with those frenzy charges, you can hit up towards 5 million damage instead, which is basically a 900,000 damage increase than what the build used to offer. So overall, like, this Divine Ire Inquisitor build got kind of buffed because everything else is just the same. I have the same skill tree, I have everything, the same items as I used to have. Literally all I did here in my Path of Building is that I just changed from the armor we had before to this armor, and I also added strength, I think, on one of the rings. Because as I said, you kind of want to try to get strength on any of your items if possible, so you can hit around 200 strength. With the Assassin's Mark, you should eventually hit closer to 100% critical strike chance, which is a lots, obviously. I mean, like, it's almost 100%. And 99.60 here from me right now, and 100% gives us just a lot of damage, right? So that's basically it for the Divine Ire Inquisitor. Nothing but buffs all around, if you ask me. I think this will be quite a fun character to play for this Ritual League that's coming up right now. Divine Ire Inquisitor was one of my favorite builds I ever played due to the like Hadouken playstyle. It's super much fun just clearing a screen by just holding down this beam that just explodes everything in your path. It worked quite well for bosses as well. If it's going to work good for the Maven fights, I'm not really sure, since it is a little bit of a dangerous playstyle sometimes because you have to stand still in order to generate the beam. Fights like Maven, where you might have to fight 10 bosses at the same time, could be a little bit sketchy. Other than that, I think the build is going to be fun and would work great for this league. Now, remember as well, if you haven't already done this, swing over to my Twitch over at twitch.tv/BurgerBrush, where I'm a full-time streamer and I stream almost daily Path of Exile content. If you have any questions regarding this build or any other build in the game or anything in the game in general, feel free to ask. Also hang out with the rest of the community. We also have an open guild in the game that you can join if you want to hang out with the community as well. And remember to subscribe here on YouTube, and most important of all, have a fantastic fucking day, my friend.